Imagine a student sitting in a classroom, watching a complex equation sprawl across the chalkboard. Within seconds, they are copying symbols they don't understand. They stare at their notes and quietly decide something that can stay with them for years. I'm just not a math person. When a student feels this disconnected, they often conclude that STEM simply isn't for them. They aren't walking away because they lack talent. They are walking away because the material was presented in a way that the human brain isn't built to absorb. To understand why, we have to look at working memory, the mental space we use to process new information. It functions as a strict biological bottleneck with very specific limits on how much data it can hold at once. When a lesson moves too fast or gets too complex, that cognitive bandwidth becomes overloaded. The system stops processing, and the student feels stuck. Our brains evolved to handle the tangible. We naturally recognize faces, tracking fast movement, and following stories. STEM subjects demand new mental models for things we can't see or touch, like chemical bonds or subatomic particles. Scientists call this effort cognitive load. Many concepts have a high intrinsic load because their elements are abstract, lacking a physical reference. Think about gravitational fields or the flow of electricity. We see their effects every day, but picturing the invisible mechanics behind them is surprisingly difficult for a brain built to track physical objects. Without a bridge between the physical world and these abstract theories, students hit a wall of confusion that feels impossible to climb. Traditional teaching often intensifies this bottleneck by leading with formulas and technical jargon. This creates extraneous load, mental effort wasted on deciphering a confusing presentation rather than the actual concept. When a student's working memory is maxed out by this unnecessary friction, the brain defaults to rote memorization. They might pass the test, but they haven't actually understood the system. Expert teachers avoid the formulas initially. Instead, they lead with a practical question, like why ice floats, or how a phone can perform billions of calculations every second. This sequence changes the brain's priorities. The question creates curiosity, which focuses attention. That attention then allows the working memory to prioritize and store the new data. Starting with the why ensures the cognitive bottleneck remains open long enough for the how to settle in. The most effective tool for clearing this bottleneck is spatial intelligence. This involves using physical space, movement, and visualization to anchor abstract ideas to the real world. Physical translation can make the invisible visible. A teacher might use hand gestures to explain the shifting of tectonic plates, or the arc of a thrown basketball to demonstrate the forces of projectile motion. Visualizing these concepts through sketching is even more powerful. It forces a student to actively construct a physical model of their understanding, making their internal thought process tangible. This comparison of volcano diagrams shows how expertise develops. As a student understands the subject better, their drawings change. The geology student's sketch focuses on essential structural forces. Stripping away decorative details like clouds reduces cognitive load, highlighting the mechanics that actually matter. We see this in mathematics too. Placing a fraction on a spatial number line helps children understand ratios much faster than looking at numbers alone. This physical segmentation creates germane load, the healthy, productive mental effort that builds long-term understanding and helps students recognize patterns. Spatial tools act as the bridge, turning invisible theories into manageable, visible systems. When that tangible spatial model finally aligns with the abstract equation, the confusion clears. The student finally sees the logic behind the symbols. This shift in perspective changes how students perceive difficulty. Struggling with a problem is no longer a sign of low intelligence. Instead, failure becomes data. It's simply a signal that the cognitive load was too high, and that the explanation needs a different physical or spatial anchor. Anyone can navigate science and math by using the right spatial sequence. Mastery is about the explanation, not just the genetics of the learner. What STEM subject once felt impossible to you, and what specific explanation finally made it clear? Share your experience in the comments below, and subscribe for more deep dives into the science of learning.